Now wait, mid does not mean bad. There are plenty of comics on these bookshelves and in my comic boxes that are mid, but I very much enjoy reading them. What it does mean is that I think maybe Daniel Warren Johnson was a little bit asleep at the wheel on this one. Howdy, I'm Kurt Williams, and today we're looking at issue 1 of The Moon is Following Us by Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossmo. I love Daniel Warren Johnson's work. His work on Transformers right now is amazing. Murder Falcon was an excellent series. I'm a big fan of Duo Powerbomb, and he's got a bunch of other excellent series. His work is usually very influenced by heavy metal. It's very dynamic and explosive, but it also has these very tender moments, these very heartfelt, emotional moments that really hit. And he also tends to draw his own stories, so the work that he ends up with is very cohesive. You can see the full extent of the vision. He's one of those few artists who can write a really good story and then draw it in a way that fully realizes what he was going for. It's very cinematic, it's very cohesive. So when I picked this up, I honestly did not know who Riley Rossmo was, so I didn't recognize the art style, and I assumed that this was another Daniel Warren Johnson book where he wrote and illustrated it. And even though it says on the inside cover that Riley Rossmo was one of the artists, it also says that Johnson was one of the artists, so I assumed that Rossmo was like maybe finishing some panels, maybe doing some inking, I don't know. So of course, as I'm reading through the issue, I'm thinking to myself, man, this Rossmo guy is really ruining this Johnson artwork. This inking style or whatever he's doing is just not cutting it. It wasn't until we got to the end of the book and we see some actual Daniel Warren Johnson artwork that I realized that it's just split up in 2 different sections of the book. So for someone who's expecting Johnson's artwork all the way through, it's a little bit disappointing. And look, Rossmo is a solid artist, and on his own projects like Martian Manhunter, his work really sticks out as being very vivid and sleek and flavorful. But when you put Rossmo's art right next to Johnson's art, given that they are so similar stylistically, it's hard to not just admit that Johnson is doing a better job. I don't know what practical techniques add up to this effect, but when you read Johnson's work, you really feel like you're in the work. You're there living the story. And Rossmo's work has a similar effect, but it's just a little bit more detached. You feel like you're looking at the story, not in it. I think the choice of angle in this panel is not as powerful as it could be, and their facial expressions are not making up for it. And this big reveal panel, which I think is supposed to be scary, actually feels like it's trying not to scare me. I really don't like the way these 2 panels are set up. Not only was it an awkward transition from the previous page to this one, but I think that first panel could have easily been 2 moments, where in the first panel we see the 2 humans dreading this moment, knowing that it's gonna hurt, but accepting, and then in the second panel maybe a close-up on either the weird tendrils coming out of the dude or the weird tendrils going into them. Especially considering the second panel we do have is the tendrils sucking their whatever out. We don't need to see the tendrils already sucking on them in the panel before this, because we have a panel where that happens. So it just felt sloppy. It wasn't as powerful as it could have been. I do really like these 2 panels where the wizard dude camouflages them with his weird cape. That's got a real sense of movement to it. You can hear it. It feels very magical. That does a good job of conveying how it's supposed to feel, I think. And this panel right here is also very solid. I love the way that he's looking over his shoulder as he says that. It's got a lot of weight to it. I think it could have been a little bit more of a close-up, even a little bit closer to his actual shoulder, and that would have given it even more power, but it's still pretty good. So nitpicking aside, if you go into this issue expecting Rossmo art and not Johnson art, then I think you'll enjoy it. It's definitely very stylistic. It's pretty solid. It's better than most artists out there right now. It really doesn't help, though, that I think this is some of Johnson's most lackluster writing. From the cover alone, it's pretty obvious that we've got 2 parental figures, if not actual parents, trying to protect a child in some capacity. So on the very first page, when Sam, the woman, wants to hurry up and get in there to get to Penny, and Duncan replies, please, let's not go there, now's not the time, it doesn't really make any sense to me. Your whole objective here is to save Penny, so why would you not want to talk about it? And then it's immediately followed by Brio, the frog guy, saying, keep me out of this husband and wife stuff, which kind of just feels like exposition dumping. It's not exactly a smooth conversation. And just to zoom out for a second, check out this entire first page here. There's a lot going on. I'm a big fan of splash pages on your first page, so the audience really has a chance to get connected to one thing, but I understand when artists really want to get a lot of information out there quickly. But this is just too much all at once. We have 3 new characters we don't know, we have a castle in a land we don't know, we have an argument that we don't understand, and we have a weird, almost flashback moment that doesn't make any sense yet. It's just a lot for the first page. You're really throwing the reader into the deep end here. And listen, I know it's a common storytelling device to start your story in the action because that's supposed to engage the reader a lot faster. And there is some merit to that, but you also run the risk of just overwhelming your reader all at once. On the second page, we do finally get a splash of the setting, which really helps with the pacing, but then the transition from page 2 to page 3 is so awkward, and the conversation conversation they're having just feels so pointless. Like Duncan trying to convince Sam that violence isn't always the answer, and then saying he doesn't want to lose himself while getting to Penny just feels like such a sissy move, Duncan. Like, if we're supposed to view Duncan as a coward in this situation, mission accomplished. But I don't think that's the way we're supposed to feel about this. I think we're supposed to see two different parents with two different perspectives with the same goal in mind, and they're just having a hard time figuring it out together. But throughout the story, Duncan is just such a whiny little goober. He's always like, oh, is it gonna hurt? Or are we gonna have to fight somebody? Oh, we'll come back later. And you just want to tell him to figure it out. Now, perhaps the fact that this character is eliciting this strong emotional response from me means that it's good storytelling. Or maybe Johnson just really wanted to explore a role reversal of the genders, having Sam, the woman, be the strong, straightforward character in the marriage. But as we find out, Duncan and Sam have been trying to rescue their child for like 6 months, and you'd think by this point Duncan's resolve would have actually strengthened to the point where he's not so worried about getting hurt, he just wants to get the job done. So I find his character a little unbelievable, is what I'm saying. Something that might be cool about the writing is this character Pigface taking a payment from the characters, and we're not sure what he took. I'm guessing that it's a memory he took from them about their daughter saying the moon is following us, but we never return to that moment in the rest of the issue. We don't know exactly what was taken, we don't know what the value of that thing was, and we also don't know the ramifications of that moment, and I wish it was a little bit more clear. And then the scene at the very end that was drawn by Johnson just doesn't feel all that necessary. I think their conversation is mostly flavor text, but also feels kind of like exposition dump, and also just feels kind of awkward. I think overall this issue could have been simpler and had the same amount of emotional weight to it. It's a really great idea. Two parents going into their child's dreams to try to save her from her never-ending sleep. That's a really fun idea. And the dreamscape is very imaginative. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It's really fun to look at. There's tons of details. It's not quite the quality of work that I expect from Johnson, but it is still worth reading. I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep collecting the series because it is a cool idea. So I'm going to give issue 1 of The Moon is Following Us a 7 out of 10 because it is mid. It's worth reading. Not the best thing I ever read, but not bad. Don't forget, Sunday, October 6th at noon, I'll be doing a live stream telethon trying to raise money for every comic shop in Georgia, and I've got a lot of really cool, fun stuff planned. I hope to see you there. And if you read it, what do you think?